Call of Cthulhu: Dark Corners of the Earth draws you in with its Lovecraftian horror story and atmosphere, but drags you down to the dark depths with glitches and frustrating game design choices. It's a flawed gem from Bethesda that's still worth getting though, especially since you can get it for around $1. I fell in love with Call of Cthulhu even before the game started. A warning message appears stating that the game is disturbing and that you shouldn't worry about your sanity while playing. Cut to the main menu where a disembodied voice says that you're going to die. It was delightfully campy and helped set the mood. The game, which came out in early 2000s for the Xbox and PC, is set in Boston in the 1900s. You play as a private detective investigating a missing persons case in a small mysterious town. The place and its locals are cold and strange, and what starts off as a simple investigation turns into a surreal journey filled with Lovecraftian cosmic horrors. The story's mystery and the moody and atmospheric quality of the game setting draws you in the moment you start playing. You'll sneak through a cave filled with cult worshippers, jump on top of platforms to try to evade guards looking for you, gun down sea monsters while aboard a Coast Guard ship, and solve plenty of puzzles. There's a good variety of gameplay and levels that prevents the game from getting stale. Overall, the game does a fine job of balancing stealth, shooting, platforming, and puzzle solving. While it's a jack of all trades, master of none, it all manages to come together.
Oh god! Oh no!
Stop.
This is taking too long. I've got to slow it down first.
Oh shit!
Side. Shoot him. We have him now.
However, some of the puzzles in the game are so obtuse that you will have to look up the answers online. One puzzle required me to open a safe, but I didn't know the safe combination. I spent 15 minutes trying to figure it out before googling the answer. Apparently the clue was hidden in the diaries that I've been picking up, but even though I read them, I still wasn't able to figure it out. On the other hand, there were a few puzzles I was able to figure out on my own. One in particular was very cryptic, and it involved deciphering text, interpreting a tablet that was shattered to pieces, and pressing hidden buttons in the correct order. I was stumped for a good couple of minutes, but I was eventually able to solve the puzzle, and it was a euphoric moment that made me feel smart. There are also light or quasi-puzzles like having to rescue a guy in jail. To do this, you have to make a crazy inmate cause a distraction, and then find the jail keys by sneaking around the police station. However, the person you have to rescue doesn't trust you, and so trying to figure out how to make him trust you is nebulous at first. It wasn't until I looked at my inventory that I remembered a character giving me a photograph that had something to do with the inmate. So when I gave the inmate the photo, he ended up trusting me. These kinds of puzzles are littered throughout the game, and it's a great and cathartic feeling when you finally find the solution, but there's always a puzzle in the game that sours the experience. The worst puzzle was during the final boss, which was horribly designed, painfully frustrating, and very finicky. It's essentially impossible to figure out what to do without resorting to a guide, which I begrudgingly did. You have to complete very specific tasks in a very specific order, and I guess because I was doing things out of order, the game glitched out. Call of Cthulhu is plagued with glitches. Some are minor graphical and audio bugs, while more serious glitches include game crashes.
Oh no! My game crashed!
This happened to me a few times, but thankfully this never caused me to lose hours of progress. The worst glitch, however, is when targets that I had to shoot with a cannon were unintentionally invisible. The only way of knowing where they were was to watch a YouTube video, but even then it was confusing. There are patches you can download for the game that may fix the glitches that I encountered. Apparently, the GOG version of Call of Cthulhu has patches pre-installed, while the Steam version doesn't. These issues will undoubtedly be a deal breaker for many, especially with the frustrating game design choices. For instance, the game has a sanity system where if your character gets too stressed, the screen will get wavy or blurry. However, the game never explains how the system works, and oftentimes, it felt like the screen would blur randomly for no apparent reason, which was very annoying and intrusive. Another grievance is that I had to replay entire sections of some stages, because the save points were too far apart from each other. One of the most egregious stages was one that had a hidden timer that I didn't know about.
Over.
Wow, I think I really am on a time mission. No way! Oh my god, it restarted me all the way back here! Get out of here! Wow! I gotta do all this again! That's crazy!
On a positive note, at least the game reloads save files very quickly, and there is something refreshing about how the game doesn't hold your hand. There are no waypoints or objective lists, so you have to pay attention to the character dialogue and explore the environment to see what you can interact with. The game doesn't highlight interactable objects like in modern games, and while these nebulous aspects would typically frustrate me, it surprisingly didn't. There are also a variety of cool moments, like shooting enemies in the back of a speeding pickup truck, or luring a Cthulhu-looking creature out of a tunnel so you can scorch it with a flamethrower. While the enemy AI is pretty dumb, it didn't really bother me, since having smarter enemies would have made the game more difficult than it needed to be.
It hit. Help me. Cover me, Jack. Shot.
I heard that. Where is he?
I ain't shot.
He's there! Come here!
There we go, okay.
For every positive thing about the game, there is a negative, but despite all of these glaring issues, I'm still fond of the game. The mystery of the game's story, the Lovecraftian horror and atmosphere, and the variety of levels and gameplay were compelling enough to complete the 9-hour journey. What starts off as a hidden gem slowly degrades to a flawed gem, but I still think it's a gem that's worth playing, if you can forgive its flaws. Call of Cthulhu usually goes on sale, and I was able to buy the Steam version for $1.44. You can watch me play some of the games that I review and don't review on Twitch. The link is in the video description. And if you want more game recommendations, be sure to like, subscribe, and click the bell icon for notifications. Also, if you know any hidden gems, be sure to let me know.